Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. We will talk today a little bit about energy management in industrial facilities. This topic has always caused a lot of discussion. And to me, this is less about technology, less about mathematics, and more about people and soft skills. We have done a number of workshops over the years about energy management. This is now the third one that we're doing. Each one has taken slightly different turn. First one was mostly about how to do the statistical analysis in general. The second one was about baselining your operations, a very statistically oriented one. This one, I will talk more about the process of setting up your energy management system. So for those of you who haven't started yet, hopefully this will give you some idea of how to start. For those of you who have done it for many years, hopefully you get something different point of view, or you can share some of your experiences. So we'll talk about in general about programs, about energy management, what it is, how to build support infrastructure, and ultimately how to implement energy management in a general manufacturing facility. Why do we keep talking about energy efficiency? In addition to all the good things that we said about energy efficiency in previous years, coming in 2017, we of course have this cap and trade thing, which means that we will be paying additional fee on all our fossil fuels. That means that even though natural gas is still most efficient and the least cost in the new cap and trade world fossil fuel, you still have to pay some extra. So you can continue using it and just pay extra, but you're at risk of exposure. That market cost is the carbon cost is supposed to be driven by the market conditions, which are then driven both by the currency fluctuation and how expensive the fuel gets or how much government wants to charge us for it. So if you just keep doing what we did for years, we're exposed to risk of continuing and rising cost of carbon. How do we mitigate that? Of course, one is we can switch to something less carbon intensive. There's electricity, there's all other sources of energy, which are not always the best choice for the manufacturing facility unless you're willing to do CHP or some sort of fresh from start idea of the manufacturing facility. It's going to be pretty difficult to replace all your equipment from gas to electricity in a matter of 6 months. There is, of course, potential for the new future in which we use natural gas for stuff that we don't use today and reduce the impact of, say, diesel or propane or all the other fuels that are more carbon intensive. But this third way, energy efficiency, it's really a best medium to short-term solution to our problems. We can argue, we can go over this many times, but it has been proven through many different sources of information down in the States, in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and now here, that energy efficiency really is your least cost option to reduce your volumetric use of natural gas or other energies. And thus, efficiency do not have to be gained only by installing in brand new equipment. Those efficiency could be gained by also using what you already have more efficiently, smartly, and make more with the equipment that you have. So that's the goal. My goal is not necessarily that you have to install brand new 98% efficient piece of equipment. Let's use 80% efficient piece of equipment as efficiently as possible to make more for the same amount. So of course, we are here to help. We're what we call demand side management umbrella. We help customers manage natural gas. Union does the same thing in their territory. So you're not alone. We can help you with these programs. And we've been doing this for years. We've been doing this since the mid-90s. So we gained some experience on how industrial facilities work and what we can offer to help you with that. This is what we have done so far. We have saved over 110 million cubic meters of natural gas, more than 20 million kilowatt hours of electricity. People don't usually associate the two. But if we can reduce, for example, HVAC use and the air that we pull out of the facility unnecessarily through our exhaust. We also shutting down the fan power, therefore we save electricity. We saved 800,000 cubic meters of water, and all in a 3-year period alone. So this is not over 20 years that we've been doing this. This is over a 3-year period alone, and only in industrial field. There's also similar programs for commercial and for residential customers. So this is our focus, is on industrial customers. So we have what we call industrial programs, custom industrial program that we call. And it's customized because we want to help you use your energy as efficiently as possible. This is why we don't have predefined technologies. We don't go to your facility and we give you a brochure that says, install this, get $50 coupon. Because as good as that is, it is not really good, well suited to industrial facility. Each one of you will use that piece of equipment slightly differently, and usage will dictate it, how much consumption that equipment has. Therefore, that's why we have a team of our energy solutions consultants who will come out, talk to you, learn about your facility over a number of years, and they will talk to your technical staff and find the solution that suits your facility the best. Not generic solution, your facilities. So how do we do this? With workshops like this, with our industrial newsletter that we send quarterly out. We do this to give you information that you can make decisions that suits you the best. Because we figure that people who have information will make the best decisions. We want you to be in advantage over anybody who is selling you anything to ask critical questions. So we arm you with information. We also work with you on identifying the opportunities. Sometimes that identification of opportunities comes from, I have 5 ideas. Which ones you think are the best? Or I have no idea what to do. Can you help me out? Or anything in between. So there is no set rule how we find opportunity. What we do is work with you to actually suit your needs. Sometimes even when we do find the opportunity, there is a question, how do you know that the opportunity is worth it? We do a lot of work, all of us are professional engineers, we do a lot of work calculating the potential savings, but there is always this question, nagging question, how do I know that your calculations are accurate? And that's why we have this measurement part. We have a couple of meters ourselves in our tool bag, but we also provide incentives for the metering. If you need to know how much your oven is using and you're interested in doing that for energy efficiency reasons, we can support you with 50% incentive for the meter for that oven to see what the usage is. Next step, putting it all together. You have the meter data, you have an idea what you want to do, how to go about doing it. This is where engineering analysis comes in. Again, we can help you out, or we can subsidize 50% of the cost of really complex audit if your facility requires more complex audit. So again, we can help you with that analysis part of it. And ultimately what the goal is for you to act and implement the idea, because only action and implementation will actually save energy. First 4 steps are all nice, but they don't actually save anything. So what we really need for you is to actually implement the project. And on that side, we can connect you with the trusted business partners, or we can tell you, these are the steps that we would take, and we leave you alone until you actually have time to do it. And then we start again. Once you do one project, that success of that project breeds interest in more projects. So the whole idea is that this circle keeps running on. Energy management. Topic of our workshop today. Usually when I say energy management, I get different responses from every single person. If I asked you what the energy management means to you, every one of you would have a different answer. Some of the answers are tied to these certifications, ISO 50001, or superior energy performance. So when we say energy management, people tend to think about these certification processes. So ISO 50001, you can certify yourself to that standard. You don't have to. You can do all the steps but not take the certification step. However, remember that ISO 50001 does not require you to set any savings targets. It's just like 9001. We promise we will be good, and we follow the steps that we set out in our standard. That's what ISO 50001 does. So more information. This presentation will be available as a PDF later on after the workshop, so you can always click the link and it will get you there. Superior energy performance came after 50001. Yes? I wouldn't be able to give you exact number. I know about 3 or 4. There isn't many people don't have a lot of appetite to do it yet. It's a fairly lengthy process, and whoever went through ISO 9001, then ISO 14001, is ISO tired by now. So people really don't do it. My personal feeling is we will see more of it. Just like with 9001, I don't know how many of you actually remember implementation. I was probably within first dozen companies that implemented ISO 9001 at the time, and we went through hell to implement it. And then a couple of years later, they actually came up with ISO 9001-2000 and something, which was watered down version of that original 9001 because nobody was really taking on the task. And the second driver will be when your customers are starting to ask, are you ISO certified? In Europe, it's a different thing. Europeans actually get tax breaks if they're ISO 50001, correct? So they have different incentive why they switch to the ISO 50001. It is not energy savings. So good question, though. So superior energy performance builds on ISO 50001, and that came out of the Department of Energy down in the States. They took ISO 50001, they said, this is all good and dandy, but we need some targets. So think of superior energy performance as ISO 50001 with built-in targets on what are you going to actually save over a period of time that you say you're going to save. Again, more information you can get on their link. What I want to point out, what's really important for me to stress out to you today is that energy management is not ISO 50001. Energy management is not superior energy performance, ISO, any standard that's not energy management. Energy management is building block for both of those. In other words, you cannot be ISO 50001 certified unless you have energy management in place. You can have energy management in place and not even touch ISO 50001 if that's what you desire. So energy management should be judged, and when you decide to go and implement it, be implemented on its own merit. And this is really important, that company goes into energy management with the goal of saving energy. Not because we want to just satisfy our mission statement, but because we really want to save energy. It takes investment, it takes a level of commitment, but it pays back in the long term. One thing that also I would like to stress out is that if you're going to do energy management, do it for all the utilities. Don't do just for electricity, don't do just for natural gas. Do it for all the utilities at once. Because the message to your people who will ultimately be responsible for delivering on this energy management will be much easier if you say it's important to save electricity, but it's also important to save gas and the water. It's going to be a lot harder to say, well, as long as you save natural gas, I don't really care how much electricity you use. That's not the same message. Psychologically, that's not how the people will react the best. So first step, I always, when somebody comes and says, I want to do energy management, the first step I ask people is, why? What's your driver? What are you hoping to get from energy management in implementation? And then I get all sorts of reasons why I want to do it. Usually it's one of these. I want to do energy accounting because I want to know whom to charge my energy. I want to do sub-billing, which is very similar to that. I want to do sub-meter because I want to know how much my oven is using. It's a one-time project. I implemented something. I want to know what my savings are. I want to certify it. All of those are valid on their own, but they're not enough to actually implement a full-out energy management system for any one reason alone. This energy management can be so much more. It has potential to be a great thing for the organization. but it has to be implemented with that goal up front. Energy management system has many, many different names. As we already said, certification, ISO this, superior energy performance, EMIS, whatever you want to call it. Has many different names, but the goal is to save you money. If at the end of the implementation, when you sit down and write the goal, how you're going to implement it, if you don't have a pile of money somewhere that you know what you're going to save, don't do it. It's not going to be worth it. Other thing is that people tend to install energy management information system, meaning meters and computers, and they think they're going to solve all their problems. Those are only going to tell you that you have a problem. They will not solve it for you. So don't expect unreasonable expectations to start with. The savings, and there are savings, always, but savings come from the action you take based on the information that you were given. No action, no savings, no matter how fancy your system is. These are the reasons that you should be implementing the energy management systems. And usually people don't think of that in these terms. Knowing how much energy is consumed in each and every appliance is important. Why? Where are you going to spend your money if you have it? If you have 5 lines, each one using natural gas, how do you know which one is using it least efficiently unless you meter it, unless you have a system in place that tells you that? To make operational improvements. Many, many times I go into facility and I talk to the operators and to the plant management and I say, your piece of equipment, let's say a boiler, can operate much more efficiently than it does today. Nobody trusts me. They're like, well, that's just a talk. And secondly, they don't know how much it goes into that piece of equipment of energy. So if I say you can save 5%, 5% of what? If you don't know what goes into that piece of equipment, 5% of that, of something you don't know, is equally unknown. Accountants don't work on unknown. Preventative maintenance. If you can see on the trend that energy is creeping up on your heat exchanger, you know that it's starting to foul. If you know it's starting to foul, you know that you have to start taking action before it shuts down your facility when you least want it, when you have that order coming in from customer that needs to be shipped in the 24 hours. And of course, all of that leads to better utilization rates, which means you will produce more product with the same amount of energy, which makes you more efficient. So if good energy management does all of this, if it conserves energy, if it reduces emissions and saves you money, what does the supporting energy management structure should look like? It should provide means to control the energy consumption, of course. It should be embedded into every aspect of organization, and it should make energy visible. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. Making energy visible is very important. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So with that in mind, we have come up with a program last year that's called Comprehensive Energy Management Program. We call it Comprehensive Energy Management Program first because it has a nice little shortened there, CEM, so we can always remember it. But also we believe that this is a comprehensive view of the energy use. This is what we want you to do. It's not simple to implement, but it's very simple in how it flows, the logic behind it. So what we're hoping for is, A, that you will learn a different way of looking at energy, and B, if you need some steps that you haven't implemented yet or that you're just trying to implement, it will give you an idea what to look for. Energy management is not something that somebody can give you as a tool and just follow the lines, because that will be very checkbox-like. You will do it just to check the box. We hope to give you something to think through and say, yeah, this applies to me. No, this does not apply to me. And create your own custom interpretation of the energy management. So we will start with a senior management sponsorship. When we enroll you in the program, we are looking for senior management sponsorship of the program. And this is crucial. I have worked in a number of industrial facilities, and I have worked with many, many good people who have wanted to do really good things there. And they try, and they try, and they try. But unless you have senior management sponsorship, the success rate is very low. because you have other priorities. It doesn't matter how much you're trying to be a really good guy for the environment if all you measured is the number of pieces you shipped on the truck. So it's very important to get senior management buy-in to say, yep, we think this is a good thing. Second one is, once you get that, you have to consolidate a team that's going to drive these changes. And when I say team, for some implementations, very simple ones, very small ones, it can be one person. Typically, it's not. Typically, it requires a little bigger team. And when I say team, I don't mean committee. I mean team of people. And we'll talk about that a little later as well. Once you have a team, what will that team aim for? What's their purpose? So you have to have some long-term energy reduction goals in mind. And those don't have to be in kilowatt hours or gigajoules, but they have to be precise of some sort. We'll talk about it as well. Once you're done with that, then you go into what I call a continuous improvement part of the energy management program. And this part is really what generates money on this side. The other one is infrastructure. It puts in place the processes. But this is what saves money. And this, instead of inventing a new wheel, let's use the wheel that we all know, continuous improvement one. Because when you think of how to structure the energy and how to save energy, there is no difference between how we're going to think about saving energy and how we're going to think about saving our raw material or any other thing that you're already doing. Many of you do Kaizen processes. Many of you look at how many steps are wasted. Same thing here. If you take steps and put energy in it, how much energy is wasted? How are we going to find out? Exactly same rules apply. So first we'll talk about these process side improvements to organization or implementations. So senior management sponsorship. I cannot stress this enough. It is crucial that you have senior management support, because that ensures, even if you get it started, even if on your own you build enough momentum to have energy management in place, sustainability will go as soon as you leave that organization. I have had many people who have been really on the leading edge of energy management. The guy who led it left, and now they're in tatters. They have a whole bunch of meters that haven't been calibrated in years. Nobody looks at them. There is zero energy management left. Having any management in charge of this ensures sustainability no matter who the person in charge is at the moment. And it is really crucial in my mind to have more than one person on your side. I have been in a situation where we had the support of one very important VP on the senior management team. He was all about it. He drove it. We, for a number of years, had very good results. Guy retired. The whole thing died. None of the other VPs actually took that load and took that ball and ran with it. So the more you can support, the more support you can gather, the longer term savings you're going to get out of the project. And when we talk to management, what is it that their management is really interested in? What do you think that they talk about at a senior management level? Do you really think that they talk about energy management? If I can illustrate it, energy management would probably be over here on their radar. What they really talk about is corporate image, risks, corporate finances. Those are the things that are really important to them. So when we talk energy management and we want to sell the project and idea to senior management, we have to talk in terms of finances, image, and risks to the company. That's what's going to buy their interest. And how do we get there? Let's step back and let's say, okay, why would we manage energy in the first place? Let's think about that for a second. As an industrial facility, we win our jobs, our contracts, for different reasons. Each one of you will have different reasons why your facility was awarded the contract. Some because they have amazing sales. Some because your marketing is really good. Some because you have unique process and your vendor, your customer cannot find any other vendor who has that process. Whatever the reason is, you win that contract. Therefore, that's your benefit. That's your organizational benefit in the marketplace. But to keep that benefit, to be competitive, you have to control the operational costs. You can't just make it as expensive as you will, because they will eventually find another solution. So to keep that going, you have to control your operational costs. So you have to have cost advantage. And this intersection between benefit and cost advantage in the industry, that's your value proposition to the customer. I'm going to give you this benefit at this cost. Don't go anywhere else because I am the only one who can supply you that amount of value. That's why people give you contracts. So let's think now about energy. Reducing the energy will actually reduce your operational costs. That's pretty straightforward. Everybody understands that, which will increase your cost advantage. But, and energy is unique in this, reducing energy consumption will also reduce your carbon footprint, improve public image, and it will enhance working conditions often. Therefore, your benefit will grow as well. As the end result of managing energy, what you will do is you will increase your value proposition to the customers. So only by reducing energy, you don't have to do two things at the same. You do one thing, and it acts on both sides of the equation. Your value proposition to the customer will go up. The other thing that we keep forgetting is, if I remember my days in industry, when somebody said, let's control our costs, it usually meant one of three things. A, I cannot make copies on two sides of the paper. 2, I have to call the vendor and get 10% discount. And 3, 10% of our workforce was cut. That's what they mean controlling cost actually means. Energy is different. Energy is actually the thing that will make your facility better, and everybody will feel better as a result. Nobody has to leave. They will, in most cases, will be better off because the environment will be cleaner in the facility if you have proper HVAC systems in place. You will produce more product for the same amount of energy because you know how to use it. Everybody wins. So you have better public image, which speaks to the corporate image part of the senior management. And you have better employee engagement because they're happier. They're not freezing anymore. Therefore, you have better corporate financial because everybody knows that happier employees, more productive employees, better for your finances. So now you addressed two issues that corporate management cares about. What about risks? Well, let's look at it this way. Managing energy, we said, is going to create savings. And those savings are going to be based on some decisions, right? So, based on actions. Actions will be based on the decisions. But now, with energy management in place, knowing where energy is going, how much you use, how you use it, you will be able to make decisions based on knowledge rather than on a hint, on a gut feel, as a reaction to the marketplace. You will base it on the actual facts. And what that picture actually looks like, if you really think about it the other way around, from that way, this way, it's nothing more than your continuous energy management improvement, which is the same as your continuous improvement in the facilities. You're going to observe energy use. You're going to identify improvements, how to reduce your energy. You will execute some of those, verify the impact so everybody knows that you actually saved. You will make those changes firm and part of your standard operating procedures going forward, so those savings will stick for a while. That is continuous improvement. It's no different. So following those same principles that you're familiar with, to both energy efficiency improvements and to implementing your energy management information system to begin with, will actually reduce your risks because everybody will be familiar with the processes, they will know what to expect, and they will know how to get there. So now you addressed all three issues that senior management is worried about: finances, public image, and risks. So that's how you should explain energy management to your senior management. Not in terms of kilowatt hours. This is what they want to know. So let's say you got buy-in. Let's say you got senior management to sign off on it. Well, now you're going to form an energy team. How to do effective energy team forming? What is effective energy team? I prefer not to have a team of one person. Usually a team of one is not very effective. And the reason for that is you get to be isolated and you don't get the knowledge of the rest of the people around you. However, I'm also not a fan of committees. So don't do cross-fictional team, do cross-functional team. Get the people to pay the bills because they know how much you pay for the gas. Get people who can influence the energy consumption. In your facility, who actually influences energy consumption? Operators, maintenance people, people on the floor. If they turn the button on and you don't know about it, your energy will go up or down, no matter what your energy management mission statement says. So you have to involve both of them. And if you have senior management sponsorship in place, senior managers should show up to these meetings every now and then. And I'm not saying that lightly. I know how busy they are. But it gives completely different perception to the people on the energy team if a senior manager shows up and says, where are we, guys? How are we doing on the stuff that we promised last month? Completely different. And include subject matter experts. You can include our ESCs you want, utility representatives from LDCs, whoever else you want on your team that can help you with knowledge that you might not have in-house. Because it's all good to be really interested in doing it. It's all good to be really interested in having management sponsorship. If you don't know what can be done, what are you going to do? Establish required time commitment. So when you have a team, be fair with people and understand that they will need some time commitment for this. You can't just say, well, show up for the meetings every now and then. Don't do anything. Your job will not change. There will be no impact on your hours. That means that you're really not serious about that team. If it takes 1 hour a week, it takes 1 hour a week. That means that they will be able to spend 39 hours doing something else, not 40. Empower team to implement good ideas. If somebody has a good idea that can be implemented immediately, give them power to implement it. Don't get bogged down in another committee process that has to approve something, that has to approve something else, that has to approve something else. Because that will frustrate people who have good ideas. And I don't know if you remember when we introduced in the industry, in the early 2000s, we introduced, put a good idea in the idea box. So first month, it was always full of ideas. Then nobody paid attention to it. Nobody actually read it. After 6 months, nobody wanted to put any more ideas in it. So you have to have a way of saying, if you're really serious, if you want people to give you ideas, you have to have a way of implementing them. If you have no way of implementing them, don't ask them for ideas immediately. Hold off on that. And set expectations. And these expectations will become your energy policy. What is it that we as a team represent, and what is it that we as a team oblige company will do? Write it in an energy policy. And I can't stress this enough again. Energy team's goal is not to be energy team forever. Energy team goal is to get the ball started, implement the processes, implement ways of getting energy into everybody's scorecard. Because I can guarantee you that after a few years of running energy team alone and nobody else cares, energy team will also stop caring. So you should always think of energy team as a transitional from company doesn't have anything. We need the team to implement it. Once we have implemented it properly, we don't need the team. Everybody manages energy. And yes, that sounds idealistic, but that's what the goal should be. So that leads us to energy reduction goals. What are you going to put into your energy policy? How are you going to define what your goals are? What do you want to achieve? I find goals always very high, very, very subjective. What are you going to save? How are you going to know that you saved something? Are you going to benchmark yourself against the competitors? How do you know that competitors are giving you the right information? Do you have that information? Do you have that much information on your competitors? Do you know exactly what they do? Great. Go for it. If you don't set your goals too high. I know from my own personal experience that I was a manager and I was an individual contributor. In both cases, if somebody gave me the goals that are too high, what do? I give up. I know I'm not going to make them. Why even try? So goals have to be something that you can manage. You have to reach. So maybe your historical best performance should be the first goal to reach. Let's make sure that whatever we could actually achieved once in the past, we can achieve consistently. Let that be your first goal. These can always be updated. Goals in the energy policy can and should be updated with time. So start with something that's achievable. Anybody think I was talking about the HR? This is HR thing 101. Goals should be SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Specific. There's no sense in saying we're going to reduce a lot of energy. Okay? Be specific. 3%, 10 gigajoules, whatever. But be specific on what you want to achieve. Have them measurable. If you put your target to be something that has to be divided by something else that people have no control over, target is meaningless. You have to give them target that they can actually achieve. So use something that you can measure as individual value, not derived value, as your target. Achievable, we already talked about. Realistic. It's very important we use realistic targets. People will give up if you don't give them that. And you know that from your own experience. And time-bound. There's no point in saying I'm going to reduce 3% energy and stop there. 3% over which time? Because that gives you something to shoot for. It's not something that you can keep, punting the ball down the field. You actually have to shoot for this. So now we have senior management sponsorship in place. We have energy team in place. We have energy reduction goals in place. So completing those 3 steps is crucial because it sends a message to the organization you're serious about it. The senior management sponsorship tells everybody in the organization, yep, they're really serious about this stuff. Let's get on it. It lays out the framework. So when you're going to implement your EMIS later on, it's not going to be random selection of meters. You will implement it with the plan of how to use it. And this upfront process improvement will save you a lot of money and grief later on in the process. I have a customer who spent $1.2 million on the meters, never used one piece of information from it. Never once. They forgot that if they don't involve union is not actually bound to use meters to guide their actions. So you have to plan ahead. If you did all these steps, you wouldn't spend $1.2 million to find out that you were wrong somewhere. So now we have all that in place. Now we have to go to our continuous improvement part of the energy management. So let's start with this continuous improvement. First step in continuous improvement would be observe energy use, observe current situation, whatever that is. So when we go and we talk to people who want to implement energy management systems, and we say, okay, let's implement energy management system, what's the first thing that springs to mind to them? Let's install meters. Let's install meter, let's buy $250,000 fancy EMIS system. Let's go. Well, I want you not to think that. Where are you going to put the meters? Because if you have a facility like this, or this, how many meters do you need to meter everything? How many sub-meters would you need? Where would you put them? Everywhere? Randomly? What would be the choice? And what would you tell your manager that you need $7.3 million for meters? Because you want to meter everything. What would be justification for the cost? Savings? What savings? From meters alone. So usually what happens as a second step when we explain this to people, they go, oh my God, this is so complicated, I'm not going to do anything. We'll forget about this. We'll put it under the rug. Let's worry about it next year. Analysis paralysis. I don't know if anybody heard of that. My old boss used to say that all the time. When we couldn't make a decision on something, it would be analysis paralysis. At some point, you have to make a choice anyway. So use your resources that you have at your disposal. We can help you out. We can break down that complexity into manageable steps. Use somebody else. Use your LDCs. Use somebody who's done this before. who can guide you through these steps. It looks very daunting when you look at it, but it can be broken down into simple steps. And all of you are familiar with this process. All of you have very complex things. Probably most of you have installed a whole line or maybe a couple of lines, maybe started a whole new facility. So when you first look at the drawing of the facility and all these new pieces of equipment, everybody would be like, oh my God, this is so complex. But when you look at one piece at a time, you make a project plan, you break down this large project of installing the facility into manageable tasks. Same thing applies here. No difference. If you have needs for the funding, we can provide some funding on that as well. Our comprehensive energy management program, for those who enroll, can give you pretty good financial incentives, because we know there is no justification for installing meters. And I will never go in front of your management to say installing 3 meters will save you 5% of the energy. No. Installing 5 meters will give you enough information that somebody can go and do something that will eventually lead to savings. Meters will not save anything. So don't promise that to management. And this is also important to remember. Energy management is an enabler. It's not a savings activity in its own. I was recently asked how much, what's my estimate on how much energy industrial sector in Ontario can save by installing energy management systems. And I said, 0. What do you mean 0? Right. Energy management itself will save 0. It's the stuff that energy management tells you, you need to install condensing economizer because your boiler uses a lot of gas and you don't use anything for this. Installing condensing economizer saves energy. Energy management does not save anything. It just tells you there's opportunity. Do you want to use it? So it's an enabler. It's not an activity in its own. So yes, observing energy use means we have to know where we're going to measure something. We have to choose the right metering before we go and install an energy management system. But it also means to analyze our energy use, so to know where to put the meters. And it also requires some knowledge development to know which meters are available, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense to meter. So measurement, yes, but only after these 2 steps are done, not directly into the meters. And this is why industrial facility, any industrial facility, will have some process equipment. We'll have the energy converters, boilers, compressors, whatever. It will convert one energy to another, but we will have those. We will have make-up air units. We will have space heaters. And this is only for natural gas. For electricity, there's a whole other web of things that use energy. So how do you know where your energy is used? Well, first you have to understand where the energy is going in your facility. Because maybe these don't use that much that you need to actually sub-meter every one of your 56 unit heaters and spend money doing so. How will you know? So you have to understand what drives your energy use. This is very important. You have to take your bills. You can ask your energy solutions consultant who can give you last 3 years of your consumption data, for example. We can do analysis for you, whatever makes you comfortable. And you have to convert those into some sort of spreadsheet, chart, something visual, whatever works for your particular nature, whatever works for you to understand the logic, to understand that going from the facility meter into process or seasonal is a different user, to understand that metered data is really driven by these consumption drivers, that metered data alone is not enough. We've done this before, so I'll go through it really quickly for those who have not been on these workshops before. If I look at 3-year history, so January, February, March are averages of your 3 Januaries, 3 Februaries, 3 Marches, last 3 years. And I put a graph like this, monthly usage of natural gas. This can be done for electricity, it can be done for water, for whatever you want. And I say, okay, I know that for this particular utility, in the summer, I don't use any heating. nothing that's related to the weather, nothing related to seasonal. So if I put a line over top of that, that becomes my base load, my process-related load. It's not related to the seasonal effects of cold or hot. It's purely process load. The leftover, on top of that, is what we call then seasonal load. That is the load that's affected by the seasonality in weather. You use more in the cold days, you'll use less or nothing in the warm days. So that's, at least that is something you have to do for your energy, before you implement your energy management system. You have to understand what the relationship is. Because in particular case here, this versus this, if I'm strapped for cash and I only can install certain number of meters and certain energy management part, I'm going to focus on this load here, because it's going to give me some potential savings later on that are greater